Welcome everybody, it's Mark Schulz with Digital Aircraft. On today's broadcast, I have two special guests. I have Admiral Bob Sprigg coming to us with many years of experience in the Navy and in the commercial industry, and we're excited to talk to him about a variety of subjects, including cybersecurity. I also have with me Manoj Singh, who is responsible for global aviation, aerospace, and defense. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast here we have today. And I'm excited to talk a bit about aviation, aerospace, but specifically defense. And Bob, with your extensive experience, in defense, I'd like to know from your perspective is that what's the importance of security from operations perspective in defense?
Well, in today's world, especially in today's world, the security of your supply chain and how you handle that is absolutely critical to your operational capability. If you think about the cyber attacks and things like that on the pipeline recently, or you think about control and knowledge of your own supply chain, right back to the individual component and part, it's an absolute must. If you can stop the manufacturing of tires, you're going to stop cars. So if you look at the components in a supply chain, managing all that, all the data that's available, the computing power that now today drives it to a degree of control it's never been. And there's also a degree of knowledge of that supply chain. You need to know where it came from, you need to know what the components are, and you need to know its criticality in your system. So in today's world, things move much faster than they've ever moved before. So we need to be able to respond to that speed.
Manoj, how do systems basically assist us in managing that supply chain, those parts, and more rapidly, responding to the demands of defense operations?
Yeah, so I think it all boils down to, Mark, how integrated the supply chain is and how closely the architecture of the system resembles that supply chain. And that goes back to an important point of not having disparate siloed systems for taking care of different pieces of those supply chain. The more integrated software that you have from beginning to the end, I think that enables the visibility, that also enables an architecture that addresses all the security and cybersecurity requirements, specifically the CMMC requirement, compliance requirements that DoD has, and hence be able to address the supply chain needs.
Yeah, okay. So, with respect to visibility, Bob, I want to come back to you for a minute. Many years ago, we had sort of this, I remember when I was involved in defense, we had this concept of, battlefield integration, or we had this concept of really understanding what's happening, in all different parts. And the important part of that was, communication back and forth. And Manoj, you just talked about, the importance of knowing information in different places and different times. So, Bob, tell me how important it is to really know about the supply chain, in real time. How important is that?
It's absolutely critical to the success of your operation, 100%. There was an old statement that the rookies talk ops and the professionals talk logistics. Logistics keeps you alive in the battle space. So I think that we have to get past the fundamental change we need to make is to get out of being reactive in the supply chain and get to be proactive and predictive. If we can't do our maintenance, support, supply on our schedule, then we're doing it to the detriment of our operational capability. And Ramco's product line can assist with that greatly.
Manoj, how do systems then provide, more real-time and predictive responses, to parts and materials or logistics? If logistics is so important, then how do we provide, response to that?
Yeah. So, Mark, there are clearly two aspects to the whole problem statement here. One is the planning, and the other one is the execution aspect of it, right? And from the planning perspective, the more integrated system you have data that cuts across multiple different aspects of supply chain, and the usage of parts in various different depots, whether they are the frontline depots or in the central warehouses, you can actually use the historical data of consumption of those parts and be able to do a lot of predictive maintenance with respect to all the requirement of those parts. At the same time, if you have an integrated operations system where you capture all your flight parameters of your various flight missions, then you can tie that into the parts consumption and be able to take it all the way from flight operations parameters to the supply chain maintenance and to the supply chain, and be able to create a predictive maintenance that is not just about the maintenance but also about the predictive planning for the parts. So there's a planning aspect of it. On the execution front, as things again start to happen, and if you have an integrated system that actually is looking all the way from mission critical readiness all the way back to the availability of maintenance needs and to the parts, then depending upon your mission and real-time need of your mission, you can make your parts available or move them to the right location if you have the visibility of those parts, where they are and which warehouses they are. So both the planning and execution aspect of it, that becomes critical from systems perspective.
Okay, let me ask you a follow-up question. If planning is so important, how does that relate to your ability to respond quickly? You know, you guys have said that the speed of need or the response time is really important. How does planning play into the ability to respond more quickly? Bob, can you start with an answer to that?
Yeah, just in just a very few words, it would be the resilience, your sustainability. If your supply chain is well organized and your ability to collect the data from your systems real time can be integrated into a modern system, much more capable than the ones of the past, your operational capability, your supply chain is much more resilient. And that's what's going to sustain you in the conflicts in the future. We don't have time to reconstitute major force structures. We have to be resilient in the real-time world.